We're back with another exciting episode. We hope you're loving our content, and there's plenty more to come. Subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay notified about new episodes. Now let's dive into the podcast. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're jumping straight into something really challenging. Public reinvention. How does someone caught up in huge controversy actually navigate that? How do they reshape their image, try to, turn the page? We're focusing on Andrew Tate for this deep dive, looking at his journey through some interesting excerpts from Chapter 10, Redemption or Reinvention. This source really digs into his strategies and the public's reaction.
Exactly. And our goal here is to pull out the key lessons. How do people, especially public figures under intense scrutiny, manage perception? How do they rebuild, try to find acceptance? Look, this isn't about agreeing or disagreeing with anyone's views. It's about understanding the how, the why.
Yeah.
Why try to transform, and what strategies actually get used when everyone's watching.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Usually when you think about someone confronting a controversial past, you expect, an apology, right, admitting fault. But the material suggests Andrew Tate's approach is pretty different. How does he actually deal with past controversies? What's the strategy?
Yeah, that's one of the most striking things. The chapter calls it a strategy of clarification, not apology. Take the Big Brother UK thing back in 2016. That video, he's consistently said it was consensual. A kink act is how he put it, not assault. He stuck to that explanation, didn't really budge.
So less I'm sorry and more you didn't understand. That's quite a stance. Does he use that same approach for other big issues?
It seems to be a pattern, yes. Look at his statements about women, the ones that caused so much uproar. His line has been they were taken out of context, maybe misrepresented. He argues they were meant to, challenge modern norms, get people thinking about personal responsibility, not to put anyone down. That's his clarification.
Okay. And the legal situation in Romania, that's obviously huge.
Same playbook, really. He's been extremely vocal about innocence, framing it as a witch hunt, a fight against the system because he's outspoken, because he's wealthy. He uses, basically every chance he gets to push back against the accusations, not apologize for anything related to them.
That really does challenge the standard idea of accountability, doesn't it? If accountability can mean just fiercely asserting your version of the truth. What does that tell us? Does that kind of strategy, work? Does it convince anyone beyond his base? Or is it just about solidifying support?
Well, that's a key insight from the source. In today's world, sometimes that unwavering conviction, that refusal to apologize, is seen as accountability by certain groups. It's like by owning your narrative so completely, you make it almost untouchable for your core followers. They see it as integrity, not bending to pressure. It's a powerful way to control the narrative, definitely, but obviously risky when it comes to broader public opinion.
Okay, so that covers confronting the past, or rather reframing it. But then there's the next step, actively rebuilding the image. That sounds even harder. How do you reshape how people see you without, pretending to be someone totally different? It feels like walking a tightrope.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And the excerpts point to a few key strategies here. A big one was shifting his content focus. So less about just stirring the pot, making provocative statements, more about practical educational stuff.
Like what?
Finance, self-improvement, even digging into mental health topics. The analysis calls it an evolution of his message, not just backing down, showing more substance.
Expanding the repertoire. Okay. But is just changing your content enough? Did he bring other people into this effort? Partnerships?
Yes, exactly. Crucial partnerships were definitely part of it. Think about the real world, the evolution of Hustlers University. By bringing in experts in different fields, it sort of diluted that purely provocateur image.
Yeah.
Made him look more like a well-rounded educator, maybe. And collaborating with other influencers, maybe ones with less controversial reputations, that helps soften the edges too, without him having to change his core message. Strategic association, basically.
Makes sense. And what about just showing up, public appearances, interviews? How did those fit into the reinvention plan?
That's the third piece. Strategic public appearances. He started seeking out platforms, podcasts, interviews where he could have longer, deeper conversations, get beyond the sound bites, talk about his philosophy, his achievements, even getting back on social media after the bans. That was calculated. He used to share stories about personal growth, overcoming challenges. The chapter really drives home that you can actively mold your public image. You highlight new things, use all the tools, content, partners, appearances to tell a different story, an evolving one.
So, okay, he's reframing the past, trying to rebuild the image. What about actually expanding his influence, reaching new people? How do you put those new intentions into real practice?
Right, that's about engaging new audiences. One tactic was diversifying platforms, moving beyond just, say, Twitter and YouTube, going to places like Rumble, which emphasizes free speech. That helped reach different demographics, maybe people tired of mainstream platforms.
Interesting. Did the style of his content change too for these potentially new listeners? A different tone, maybe?
Yeah, the content style transformed quite a bit, according to the source. He started tackling broader themes, things like mental resilience, financial basics, even spiritual growth sometimes. It wasn't necessarily watering down his core ideas, but maybe making them more accessible. He also did more long-form stuff like Q&As, podcasts, trying to appeal beyond just young men maybe to women, older people, anyone looking for that kind of advice. And using cross-sphere collaborations was key too, appearing on podcasts with hosts who have totally different audiences. That's a way to introduce his ideas, try to find some universal appeal.
Sounds like a real push to broaden the base. And the source keeps coming back to this idea that actions speak louder than words in rebranding. What specific actions did he take that demonstrated this supposed shift?
The analysis points to a few things. First, philanthropy, but philanthropy tied to his philosophy, like launching scholarships for entrepreneurs or athletes. It's giving back, but also spreading his message about hard work, financial independence.
Okay, so philanthropy with a specific angle. What else?
Second, new business ventures. The big one being Hustlers University, evolving into the real world. That framed it more as comprehensive education, wealth creation, life skills, trying to build a legacy beyond the personal drama, something with broader, maybe more positive impact.
All right, shifting focus from the controversy to the creation. That feels significant.
It is. And third, there were subtle changes in personal conduct, still bold, but maybe a shift in how he engaged critics, more towards, let's say, constructive debate rather than just pure shock value. And in public talks, maybe a bit more reflection on the past than before. The takeaway here is strong. Actions aren't just proof, they're strategic. Every scholarship, every business shift is like building evidence to counter skepticism. It changes the conversation from what he said to what he's building. It's maybe the best defense you have in that public opinion court.
So after all that, the reframing, the rebuilding, the actions, what was the public reaction? Did he get any kind of forgiveness or acceptance? What's the verdict?
Well, it's definitely a mixed bag, as the source puts it. And that's important. His core followers, they mostly see all this, the new ventures, the content shifts, as proof of genuine change. They see resilience, they see him sticking to his guns but evolving, they champion it. But then there's significant skepticism. Lots of people, especially critics like feminist groups or social commentators, are suspicious. They question if it's sincere, if it's just PR. They argue the core beliefs haven't really budged.
So definitely no universal applause. Some people just aren't buying it.
Not at all. Public memory is long, Trust, once broken, is really hard to rebuild. But the source does mention a kind of cautious openness from some people who were maybe undecided before. As he showed up in new places, talked about different things, some people became willing to at least listen again, reconsider, based on what he was doing, not demanding forgiveness. It's a slow, complex dance.
And the media's role in all this. You mentioned it felt like a double-edged sword for him.
Totally. Initially, a lot of media coverage painted him as the villain, the misogynist.
Mm-hmm.
They focused heavily on the legal troubles, often in a sensational way.
Standard playbook for controversy, I suppose.
Pretty much. But then, as he started making these strategic shifts, some outlets gave him a platform to present his side more directly. Think the Full Send podcast or Piers Morgan's show. Those were opportunities for him to challenge the narrative, talk about his vision, his comeback, not just be on the defensive.
So the same media that amplified the criticism later became a way for him to broadcast his reinvention narrative.
In some cases, yes. A shifting coverage started to appear. Some stories focused on the comeback, his business skills, his digital influence. It really highlights the lesson about strategic media engagement. You can't fully control it, but you can try to influence it, use it to get your new messages out there, push back against the old stories. Every interview becomes a chance to reinforce the evolving image. So if we zoom out and connect all these dots, what this deep dive really shows is that redemption, or maybe reinvention, is not like a finish line you cross. It's an ongoing journey. It demands constant effort, consistency in the changes you're making, proving yourself day after day. His journey, whatever you think of him, it tells us a lot about resilience, about navigating that tricky space of public opinion, and maybe about the importance of sticking to your principles, even when it feels like the world's against you. It's about constantly adding new chapters, not trying to erase the old ones.
Wow, yeah. What a fascinating look at a really complex process. The big takeaways for me are definitely the power you can have by just owning your narrative, even if it's controversial. And then the sheer strategy involved in rebuilding, changing content, picking partners carefully, engaging new people, and ultimately, showing, not just telling, actions really mattering. So it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? In this age where everyone's under a microscope, judgment is instant. How do you tell the difference between real personal growth and just clever rebranding? That goes for public figures, sure, but maybe even in our own lives. What does it genuinely mean to, turn a page and define your own future instead of just being stuck with your past, something to chew on?
Thank you for joining us in this episode, diving into the life of top G, Andrew Tate. We hope you've gained valuable insights. Stay tuned for more episodes to come. You can grab our book on Amazon or Gumroad anytime. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, GenZCreatives. Wishing you an ample dose of pain and suffering like NVIDIA's CEO. See you next time.